Once more, federal judges are holding the line here. A federal judge finds a Trump data system to verify voters is unlawful. This is by Jude Jaffe Block. A federal judge on Monday ruled that a Trump administration project to aggregate Americans' personal data to check voter eligibility is unlawful, and the resulting data tool cannot be used in its current form. Several states, of course, have already run their entire voter list through the system known as SAVE that was overhauled by the Trump administration last year. While the tool is supposed to flag potential non-citizens and deceased voters, a number of American citizens who are foreign-born have been mistakenly flagged as potential non-citizens by SAVE. All in all, the federal government has knowingly trampled on the privacy rights of American citizens in a manner that threatens the sacred right to vote. U.S. District Court Judge Sparkle Suknanan, a Biden appointee, wrote in her 75-page ruling, "This court cannot stand idly by while that happens." NPR was the first outlet to report on the federal government's massive expansion of SAVE to turn it into a tool to check the citizenship of all Americans, and how the government had not followed required protocols to provide public notice under the Privacy Act, or any mention to Congress, or anything. SAVE is run by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and was previously used by the state and federal agencies to check whether a foreign-born individual was eligible for certain government benefits. Those checks were done one by one. Last year, USCIS's parent agency, the Department of Homeland Security, with the help of DOJ, made it possible to perform bulk checks on SAVE. Further changes linked SAVE to Social Security Administration data for the first time and added the records of American-born citizens. I have been saying this. Just give me credit for that. Just give me fucking credit for saying that DOJ was a data mining operation, that he was killing all of the investigations into himself and stealing our data so that they could put it all in one place and make a mass surveillance state. I've been saying this 2 years. I want credit for that. Suknanan wrote in her ruling that in performing this overhaul, federal agencies haphazardly combined and repurposed the private information of millions of Americans, including citizenship data that they knew to be unreliable. Under Suknanan's order, the overhauled SAVE tool can no longer be used. But the Trump administration had already made SAVE checks central to its voting and elections agenda. For instance, on March 31st, Trump signed an executive order that, among its provisions, directs the Department of Homeland Security to use SAVE and other federal data to generate a list of eligible U.S. citizen voters in each state. Legal challenges are aiming to halt this executive order. An earlier executive order from March of 2025 included a mandate that DHS provide free access to a verification tool to check the citizenship or immigration status of registered voters. Parts of that order were stopped by the courts, but USCIS proceeded with updates to the SAVE system. More than 60 million voter records were breached. In April of this year, then USCIS spokesperson Matthew Trageser said more than 60 million voters had their records run through the revamped SAVE system, and of those, 21,000, less than 1%, had been flagged as potential non-citizens. Trump and his administration have focused on curtailing voting by non-citizens, even though it is already against federal law, and as research and state reviews have found it extremely rare. But Trump's never let the truth get in his way, has he? And the White House referred NPR to DHS for comment. A DHS spokesperson responded by flagging a post by the department's general counsel, James Percival, that he wrote on X. It's amazing how hard the left will fight to stop us from solving problems they insist do not exist. I'm not even going to read the rest of it. It's just stupid. So the federal government can appeal the ruling. The Department of Justice, which is representing DHS in the lawsuit, sent NPR a statement that reads, "The department will continue to aggressively defend President Trump's immigration enforcement agenda, and President Trump, and DHS's use of the SAVE system to verify citizenship, and President Trump." Suknanan's order found that the federal agencies did not have the statutory authority to overhaul SAVE. She found that the creation of the expanded SAVE violated the Privacy, Social Security, and Administrative Procedural Acts. Today's decision is a resounding victory for voters, Marsha Johnson of the League of Women Voters, one of the plaintiffs in the case, said in a statement. Efforts to create a federal voter database to facilitate voter purges threatens the fundamental right at the heart of our democracy. Last year, after the plaintiffs filed a lawsuit challenging the SAVE overhaul, DHS and SSA retroactively issued notices about the changes that had already been made to SAVE. The notices received tens of thousands of negative comments, but the federal agencies did not modify their plans. They just didn't listen to the American people who spoke out against this plan, said Nicole Suss, a lawyer with Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, which represents plaintiffs in the case. And now we have a court saying, exactly what these commenters were saying, which is that this is an unlawful, unreliable system, and it needs to be shut down unless and until Congress authorizes it. Last November, NPR wrote about the case of Anthony Nell, who was born in South Africa and acquired U.S. citizenship as a teenager when his parents became naturalized citizens. Nell was registered to vote in Texas, but was among more than 2,700 individuals who were flagged as potential non-citizens after the state ran its voter list through SAVE. Nell was removed from the rolls when he did not respond in time to a letter instructing him to prove his citizenship at the local county election office. He later filed a declaration in a lawsuit. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services acknowledges in its fact sheet that there are some categories of foreign-born citizens who cannot be verified by SAVE. Nell told NPR on Monday's ruling that bars the use of the revamped SAVE tool was a step in the right direction for voting and privacy rights. Since NPR first profiled this story, he got his passport renewed and showed that to the county election office and was reinstated on the voter rolls. He voted in the Texas primary and runoff elections this spring. After my right to vote was put in jeopardy by the system, I now have even more appreciation for my right to vote, Nell said. And I am planning to vote in every single possible election, no matter how small, and for the foreseeable future. And there you have it. A bit of good news. The federal court is continuing to hold the line. Of course, none of this matters if we have this antiquated, corrupt as fuck Supreme Court at the very top that can just throw all these rulings out, in essence.